Every year, my family seemed to forget I existed during the holidays, only to remember me come January when the bills rolled in. The moment I realized they had planned it all along, something inside me shattered. I never thought love could feel this cold. If you've ever felt invisible to the people who should love you most, then this story is for you. I'm sharing something deeply personal today, and I hope it reaches someone who needs to hear it. If it touches your heart, please consider liking and subscribing so we can help others who are walking this painful road. I'm standing in my kitchen in Chicago, wearing the same faded blue cardigan I've had for 15 years, the one with the loose button I keep meaning to fix. My hands are shaking as I hold my phone, staring at a group text that just came through. It's from my daughter Sarah. The message is brief, almost clinical in its efficiency. Family gathering this Saturday at noon. Bring your famous cranberry sauce. That's it. No warmth. No love you, Mom. Just an assignment, like I'm the hired help. I read the message 3 times, each word feeling like a small knife. There's no question mark, no please. Nothing that acknowledges I might have plans of my own. The assumption is clear. I'll be there because I'm always there, waiting in the wings for the moment they decide to include me. My thumb hovers over the keyboard, and I start typing a response several times. Yes, I'll be there. Can't wait to see everyone. But each time I delete the words before sending them. Something feels different this time. Something has shifted inside me, like a tectonic plate finally giving way after years of pressure. The winter light filters through my kitchen window, casting long shadows across the linoleum floor I mopped this morning. Outside, the neighborhood is preparing for the holidays. I can see the Johnsons across the street hanging lights on their porch. Hear the faint sound of Christmas music drifting from somewhere down the block. Mrs. Johnson waves at me through the window, her red sweater bright against the gray December sky. I manage a weak wave back, wondering if she can see the devastation on my face from all the way across the street. Inside my small 2-bedroom apartment, there are no decorations. I stopped putting them up 3 years ago. What's the point when no one comes to see them? I set my phone down on the counter next to the stack of unopened mail I've been avoiding. My reflection stares back at me from the darkened window. When did I get so old? When did my shoulders start curving forward like this, as if I'm always bracing for the next blow? I'm 68 years old, and I feel like I'm living in a stranger's body, going through motions I no longer understand. The face looking back at me has deep lines around the mouth, not from smiling, but from years of pressing my lips together to keep from saying what I really feel. My mother used to call them worry lines. Now I call them surrender lines. The apartment smells like the chamomile tea I made an hour ago but forgot to drink. It sits on the table, cold now, a thin film forming on top. I walk over and wrap my hands around the cup anyway, seeking whatever warmth might be left. The ceramic is cool against my palms, just like everything else in my life these days. I remember when this apartment felt cozy, when I first moved here after selling the family house. That was 8 years ago, right after I retired from my full-time teaching job. I thought downsizing would give me freedom, would allow me to live more simply. Instead, it just made the loneliness more concentrated, more impossible to ignore. My mind drifts back to last Christmas. I remember checking my phone every few minutes, waiting for the invitation that never came. I had told myself they were just busy, that they'd call any minute. I even made a batch of my special fudge, the recipe my mother taught me, the one with the secret ingredient nobody else knows. It's a tablespoon of espresso powder that deepens the chocolate flavor, makes it taste rich and complex. My mother's mother taught her that trick during the Depression, when you had to make every ingredient count. I wrapped it in festive paper and waited by the phone like a fool. The fudge sat on my counter for 3 days before I finally threw it away, the chocolate having turned gray and grainy in the cold. On Christmas Eve, I did something I'm not proud of. I drove past Sarah's house, the big colonial in Oak Park with the wraparound porch and the perfectly manicured lawn. Even in winter, it looked like something out of a magazine. Every window glowed with warm light, and I could see the Christmas tree through the bay window, covered in ornaments and surrounded by presents. Cars lined the street. I recognized Michael's truck, and my grandson Tyler's beat-up Honda with the dent in the rear fender. There were other cars, too, ones I didn't recognize. Friends, maybe, or neighbors. People who weren't me. I sat in my car across the street for 20 minutes, the engine running to keep me warm, watching shadows move behind the curtains. I saw Sarah pass by the window, laughing at something, her hand holding a wine glass. She looked so happy, so carefree. I wondered if she thought about me at all, if anyone inside that warm, bright house had paused even for a moment to consider where I was or what I was doing. The rational part of my brain told me to leave, to go home before someone saw me, and I humiliated myself further. But I couldn't move. I sat there, frozen, tears streaming down my face, my breath fogging up the windshield. Finally, a neighbor started walking toward my car, probably wondering why someone was parked out front for so long. I drove away quickly, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I went home and took 2 sleeping pills, something I rarely do, just so I could escape into unconsciousness and not have to feel the aching emptiness of that night. On Christmas Day, I ate a frozen dinner alone, watching other families on television celebrate together. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was used to being alone. But when I went to bed that night, I cried into my pillow until my throat was raw. The next morning, I woke up with my eyes so swollen I could barely open them. I called in sick to my part-time job at the library, the first time I'd missed work in 5 years. When my supervisor Deborah called to check on me, I told her I had the flu. She didn't believe me. I could hear it in her voice, but she was kind enough not to press. Then January came. Like clockwork, my phone lit up with messages. Sarah needed help with her mortgage payment. My son Michael called about his car repairs. Even my grandson Tyler reached out, something about student loans and textbooks. They all had the same tone, that practiced casualness that poorly disguised their urgency. "Hey, Mom, I hate to ask, but I'm in a bit of a bind. You know I wouldn't reach out unless it was important." And like always, I said yes. I transferred the money, watching my savings account numbers drop lower and lower. I told myself it was what mothers do. We sacrifice, we provide, we love unconditionally, even when that love feels distinctly one-sided. With each transfer, I felt a piece of myself dissolving, becoming smaller, less substantial. But I couldn't stop. Saying no to my children felt impossible, like asking me to stop breathing or to make my heart stop beating. I walked to my bedroom and opened the closet door. On the top shelf, hidden behind old sweaters I never wear, is a shoebox full of photographs. I pull it down and sit on the edge of my bed, the mattress creaking under my weight. The photos smell like dust and time. There's one of Sarah at 5 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, sitting on my lap at our old house in the suburbs. She's wearing a pink dress with a white collar, the one she insisted on wearing every single day for 3 months straight. I can still remember the weight of her on my lap, how she smelled like strawberry shampoo and Play-Doh. In the photo, she's looking up at me with such pure adoration, such complete trust and love. Where did that little girl go? Another of Michael's high school graduation, his arm around my shoulder, both of us squinting in the bright June sun. He was so proud that day, having earned a full scholarship to Northwestern. His father and I were bursting with pride. Michael had given a speech as class president, talking about family and gratitude, and never forgetting where you came from. I remember thinking that all the hard years, all the sacrifices, had been worth it to see him standing there, so confident and full of potential. Now he's 42, working a job he hates, going through his second divorce, and calling me for money every few weeks. Pictures of birthday parties I threw, Thanksgivings I hosted, Christmases when the house was full of laughter and wrapping paper and the smell of cinnamon rolls baking. There's one from Sarah's 16th birthday. I had spent weeks planning a surprise party, inviting all her friends, making her favorite foods. In the photo, she's blowing out the candles on a cake I stayed up until 2 a.m. decorating. She's surrounded by friends, her face glowing with happiness. I'm visible in the background, watching her with a smile so full of love it almost hurts to look at now. I find a photo from a Christmas 12 years ago, before their father died, when things were still good. We're all gathered around the tree in our old living room. James has his arm around me, and both kids are there with their families. Tyler was just a toddler then, sitting on the floor surrounded by torn wrapping paper, his face sticky with candy cane residue. Everyone is smiling. We look like a family from a greeting card, like people who genuinely enjoyed being together. The photo trembles in my hands. What happened to us? When did it all change? I try to pinpoint the exact moment, but it's like trying to catch smoke. It was gradual, I think. After their father died 10 years ago, they needed me more. Or at least, they needed my help more. I became the solution to their problems, the safety net they could always fall back on. I told myself I was being needed, that this was my purpose. But somewhere along the way, being needed transformed into being used. James had a good life insurance policy. He always was careful about things like that, always thinking ahead. When he died suddenly of a heart attack at just 59 years old, the money allowed me to pay off our house and have a comfortable nest egg. I was devastated by his death. We'd been married for 35 years, but at least I didn't have to worry about money on top of everything else. The kids knew about the insurance money. Maybe that's when everything shifted. Maybe that's when I stopped being mom and became the bank of mom. I remember the first Christmas they didn't invite me. 5 years ago now. Sarah called 2 days before the holiday to tell me they were doing something small, just immediate family. I remember the way my chest tightened when she said it, the way I had to clear my throat before responding that I understood. Of course, honey, you should spend it with your kids. My voice had sounded bright and cheerful, even to my own ears. Inside, I was screaming. Aren't I immediate family? Aren't I the person who gave birth to you, who stayed up all night when you had colic, who taught you to read and ride a bike and drive a car? But I didn't say any of that. I swallowed it all down, added it to the pile of unspoken hurts I'd been accumulating for years. After we hung up, I sat on my couch for hours, not moving, barely breathing. When it got dark, I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there in the darkness, feeling the walls of my apartment pressing in around me, wondering how I had become so dispensable to the people I loved most in the world. That was when the pattern started. Every November, I'd feel the familiar dread building. Every December, I'd watch the days count down, waiting for an invitation that never materialized. And every January, like the most reliable of seasons, they'd return with their hands out, and their problems neatly packaged as emergencies only I could solve. The funny thing is, they never seemed to notice the pattern. Or maybe they did notice and just didn't care. I'm not sure which possibility is worse. I tried to talk to Sarah about it once, about 2 years ago. I called her on a random Tuesday afternoon, when I knew she'd be home from her part-time job at the dental office. I rehearsed what I wanted to say, wrote down bullet points on a notepad so I wouldn't lose my nerve. When she answered, she sounded distracted, like she was doing something else while talking to me. "Sarah, honey," I said, my voice already shaking. "I need to talk to you about something that's been bothering me." She made a non-committal sound. "What's up, Mom?" I took a deep breath. "I feel like we're not as close as we used to be, like I'm not really part of the family anymore, except when you need something from me." There was a long pause. Then she laughed. Not a cruel laugh exactly, but dismissive. "Oh, Mom, don't be dramatic. We're all just busy, you know how it is. Life gets crazy with work and kids and everything. It doesn't mean we don't love you. But when do I see you?" I pressed, my courage building. When do we spend time together that doesn't involve me helping with something or giving you money? Another pause, this one more uncomfortable. Mom, I really don't have time for this right now. I've got to pick up Emma from dance and I still need to start dinner. Can we talk about this later? Later never came, of course. We never spoke about it again. And I learned my lesson. Don't rock the boat, don't make demands, don't ask for what you need. Just be grateful for whatever scraps of attention they toss your way. I put the photos back in the box and return it to the closet. My reflection catches in the mirror attached to the closet door. I barely recognize myself anymore. My gray hair is pulled back in a messy bun, the way I've worn it for years because it's easy and I stopped caring about appearances. My eyes look tired, ringed with dark circles that no amount of sleep seems to erase. I'm wearing the same cardigan, the same old jeans, the same defeated expression I see every morning. When did I stop trying? When did I give up on the idea that I deserved better? The phone buzzes again, another text, this time from Michael. Hey Mom, meant to ask, can you cover my insurance payment this month? Things are tight with the holidays and all. I'll pay you back next month, promise. I stare at the message for a long time. The holidays. He spent money on the holidays I wasn't invited to. And now he wants me to cover his insurance. The irony would be funny if it wasn't so crushing. This is how it works, I realize with sudden clarity. They spend their money on celebrations I'm not part of, then come to me to cover the essentials. I subsidize their lives while remaining peripheral to them. I'm not a mother. I'm a financial institution with no interest rate and no expectation of repayment. For the first time, I don't respond immediately. I set the phone face down on my nightstand and lie back on my bed, staring at the ceiling. There's a water stain in the corner from a leak that happened last winter. I keep meaning to paint over it, but I never do. It's become part of the landscape of my life, just like everything else I've learned to accept. The stain looks like a map of some unknown country, its borders irregular and spreading. Sometimes I lie here and imagine what that country would be like. Would it be a place where I mattered? Where my voice was heard? Where love flowed in both directions? I think about my own mother, gone now for 15 years. She used to tell me that family was everything, that blood was thicker than water, that you always put your children first no matter what. I absorbed those lessons completely, built my entire identity around them. But Mom also had boundaries. She loved fiercely, but she didn't let people walk all over her. When did I lose that part of the lesson? Or did I never learn it in the first place? My mother would have handled this differently. I remember once when I was in college, I came home for Christmas break and asked her for money to go on a spring break trip with my friends. I already knew she couldn't really afford it. Dad had just been laid off from the factory, but I asked anyway because I wanted to go so badly. She looked at me with those sharp eyes of hers and said, "If you want to go, you'll work for it. I love you, but I'm not a magic money tree." I was angry at the time, thought she was being mean. Now I understand she was teaching me responsibility, teaching me that love didn't mean unlimited access to someone else's resources. Why couldn't I teach my own children that lesson? Why did I think that giving them everything would make them love me more? All it did was teach them that I would always say yes, that my needs didn't matter, that I existed solely to serve their purposes. The apartment is so quiet, I can hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the distant sound of traffic on the street below. This is my life now. Silence and waiting. Waiting for the next request, the next demand disguised as a family obligation. Waiting to feel like I matter for something other than my bank account. But what if I stopped waiting? What if I simply stopped? The thought is both terrifying and liberating. What would happen if I said no? What would they do if I set boundaries? If I demanded to be treated with respect and dignity? Would they rise to the occasion, realize what they'd been doing, and change? Or would they simply cut me out entirely, deciding I wasn't worth the effort if I came with conditions? I close my eyes and try to remember the last time one of them asked how I was doing. Really asked, Not just a perfunctory, "How are you?" before launching into their own problems. I can't recall a single instance. When I'm with them, they talk about their lives, their struggles, their triumphs. I nod and smile and offer advice they rarely take. I am the audience to their lives, never the main character in my own story. The last time I saw them all together was in March, at Tyler's 21st birthday party. Sarah had texted me the details, and of course I went. I brought a gift, a nice watch I couldn't really afford, and made his favorite dessert, the triple-layer chocolate cake that takes me hours to make. When I arrived at Sarah's house, the party was already in full swing. Tyler was in the backyard with his friends, and the adults were clustered in the kitchen, drinking wine and talking. I stood in the doorway holding my cake, waiting for someone to notice me. It took almost 5 minutes. Finally, Sarah glanced over and said, "Oh, Mom, you're here. Put the cake on the counter, would you?" Then she turned back to her conversation with someone I didn't recognize, something about a vacation they were planning to Mexico. I stood in that kitchen for 2 hours, listening to everyone talk, occasionally asking questions that received one-word answers. No one asked me about my life, about my work at the library, about anything. When I tried to join a conversation about a book I'd recently read, my daughter-in-law Lisa changed the subject after about 30 seconds. It was like I was invisible, or worse, like I was a piece of furniture that everyone had grown so accustomed to they no longer even saw. Tyler liked the watch at least. He gave me a quick hug and said, "Thanks, Grandma," before running back to his friends. I left early, claiming I had a headache. No one tried to stop me. Sarah walked me to the door and said, "Thanks for coming, Mom," in the same tone she might use with the mailman. As I drove home, I realized I'd been at my grandson's birthday party for 2 hours, and he'd spoken a total of maybe 15 words to me. My phone buzzes again. I don't look at it. Instead, I get up and walk to the kitchen, where I finally pour out the cold tea and make a fresh cup. As the water boils, I notice the stack of bills on my counter. My own bills, the ones I've been putting off because I keep giving my money away to my children. The electric bill is overdue. So is the cable. I've been eating less, buying the cheapest groceries I can find, wearing clothes until they're threadbare, all so I can afford to keep bailing out my adult children who somehow never manage to get their lives together. Last month, I had to put off getting my blood pressure medication refilled because I didn't have enough in my account after helping Michael with his rent. I went 2 weeks without it, feeling dizzy and short of breath before my next pension check came in. I didn't tell anyone, of course. Who would I tell? Who would care? My children certainly wouldn't. They'd probably just feel inconvenienced that their backup bank might be having health problems. The kettle whistles, and I pour the water over a tea bag, watching the color slowly seep out, turning the clear water amber. I add a spoonful of honey from the jar I've been rationing, stirring slowly as I try to organize the chaos of thoughts in my head. The spoon clinks against the ceramic with a soft, rhythmic sound. It's soothing somehow, this small ritual, this tiny act of care I perform for myself. Something has to change. I know this with the same certainty I know my own name. But change is terrifying when you're 68 years old and your entire identity has been built around being the person who sacrifices everything for family. Who am I if I'm not that person? What's left of me underneath all these years of giving? Is there anything left at all, or have I given away so many pieces of myself that I've become hollow? An empty shell performing the motions of existence? I think about Deborah, my supervisor at the library. She's around my age, maybe a few years younger, with kind eyes and a ready laugh. We've had coffee together a few times, sitting in the break room during our shifts, talking about books and life. She's told me about her own children, how they live across the country now, but call her every week, how they visit for holidays and actually seem to enjoy spending time with her. Once, I worked up the courage to tell her a little about my situation. Not everything. I was too ashamed to tell everything, but enough for her to understand. She looked at me with such compassion, it almost broke me. "Honey," she said, gently but firmly, "you're allowed to set boundaries. You're allowed to say no. Being a mother doesn't mean being a doormat." I nodded and changed the subject quickly, uncomfortable with the truth in her words. But they've stayed with me, echoing in my head during the quiet moments. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to say no. I take my tea to the living room and sit in my worn armchair, the one I bought at a thrift store 20 years ago. The fabric is faded, and there's a small tear in the left arm, but it's comfortable and familiar. I cradle the warm cup in my hands and stare out the window at the December evening settling over Chicago. The streetlights are coming on, their orange glow reflecting off the patches of dirty snow that line the sidewalks. A young couple walks by, hand in hand, laughing about something. They look so carefree, so unburdened. I can't remember the last time I laughed like that. Tomorrow is Sunday. I have my shift at the library in the afternoon. It's volunteer work now since I retired, but I still go because it gives me something to do, somewhere to be that isn't this silent apartment. The children's reading hour is at 2, and I love watching the kids' faces light up when I read to them. For those 30 minutes, I feel useful in a way that has nothing to do with money. The children listen to me, hang on every word, their eyes wide with wonder and imagination. Sometimes I wonder if I should have been a teacher. Maybe then I would have learned how to set boundaries while still being nurturing. Maybe then I would have understood that love and discipline could coexist. Last week, a little girl named Maya asked me if I was a grandma. I told her I was. She climbed into my lap without asking and said, "You smell nice, like my grandma." I had to blink back tears. This child I barely knew had shown me more uncomplicated affection in 5 minutes than my own grandchildren had shown me in years. After story time, Maya's mother thanked me and asked if I'd be back next week. She said Maya had been talking about story time all week, how excited she was to see the nice reading lady again. That simple comment, that small acknowledgement that I mattered to someone, made me cry in my car on the drive home. My phone continues to buzz periodically throughout the evening. I ignore it. Each notification feels like a small rebellion, a tiny declaration of independence. I finish my tea and make myself a simple dinner of canned soup and crackers. I eat slowly, tasting each bite, trying to be present in this moment rather than lost in the swirl of resentment and hurt that threatens to consume me. The soup is chicken noodle, the kind I used to make from scratch for my kids when they were sick. Now I eat it from a can because cooking for one person feels pointless, depressing. As I wash my single bowl and spoon, I look out the window above the sink. Mrs. Johnson is taking down her garbage cans, moving slowly in the cold. Her husband comes out to help her, and even from here I can see the tenderness between them. The way he takes the heavier can from her hands, the way she pats his arm in thanks. They've been married for 43 years, she told me once. Their children live nearby and visit often. I've seen them, happy family gatherings on the porch in summer, grandchildren running around the yard. What did she do that I didn't? How did she manage to raise children who actually wanted to be around her? That night, I lie in bed unable to sleep. The darkness presses in around me, and with it come all the memories I try to keep at bay during the daylight hours. I remember being 35 and driving Sarah to soccer practice, packing Michael's lunch every morning, kissing scraped knees and wiping away tears. I remember being their entire world, the person they ran to when they were scared or sad or just needed a hug. When did I stop being that person? When did I become nothing more than an ATM with a pulse? I remember Michael at 7 years old, coming home from school crying because someone had called him stupid. I held him for an hour, stroking his hair, telling him how smart and wonderful he was, how proud I was to be his mother. He looked up at me with tear-stained cheeks and said, "You're the best mom in the whole world." I believed he meant it. I believed I was building something that would last forever, a bond so strong that nothing could break it. Where is that little boy now? What happened to the child who thought I hung the moon? The answer, I realize, is that I allowed it to happen. Slowly, gradually, I taught them that my love had no limits and no conditions. I taught them that I would always say yes, always give more, always sacrifice my own needs for theirs. And they learned the lesson well, too well. I never showed them that I was a person with my own needs, my own feelings, my own limitations. I never let them see me as anything other than an endless well they could draw from without ever worrying it might run dry. But wells do run dry, and I'm so close to empty now, I can feel the bottom scraping. I think about James, about what he would say if he could see how things have turned out. Would he be disappointed in me for letting it get this far? Or would he be disappointed in our children for taking advantage of me this way? James was always better at saying no than I was. He loved the kids fiercely, but he wasn't afraid to set boundaries, to let them experience consequences. When Sarah wanted to quit piano lessons after 3 months, despite begging for them, James said no. She was angry at him for weeks, but she stuck with it and eventually grew to love it. She played at our anniversary party years later, a beautiful piece by Chopin that brought tears to my eyes. James would have seen this pattern developing and stopped it early. He would have sat the kids down and had a frank conversation about respect and reciprocity. He wouldn't have let them treat me like this. But James has been gone for 10 years, and I've been managing on my own, making mistake after mistake, digging myself deeper into this hole of resentment and hurt. Around 3 in the morning, I get up and turn on the light. I can't lie here in the dark anymore, drowning in memories and regrets. I go to my desk and pull out a notebook, the one I bought last year thinking I might start journaling. I've written in it maybe 3 times, all entries starting with optimistic goals and ending with vague disappointment. But tonight feels different. Tonight I need to get these thoughts out of my head and onto paper where I can see them, where they become real and undeniable. I start writing. At first, my hand shakes and my writing is messy, but as the words flow, I feel something loosening in my chest. I write about everything. The missed Christmases, the constant requests for money, the feeling of invisibility, the conversation with Sarah that went nowhere, Tyler's birthday party, the times I drove past their houses, hoping to catch a glimpse of the life I'm not part of. I write about the good times, too, the memories that make this hurt so much more because they prove it wasn't always like this. We were a real family once. We loved each other in ways that felt genuine and reciprocal. By the time I finish, the sky outside is starting to lighten, and I've filled 17 pages with my cramped handwriting. My hand aches, but my chest feels lighter somehow. Seeing it all written out, all the evidence of my own complicity in this dynamic, is painful but clarifying. I can't change what's already happened, but I can change what happens next. I make coffee and watch the sun come up over the Chicago skyline. It's going to be a clear day, cold but bright. The kind of winter day that makes everything look sharp and defined, no softness or ambiguity. I think about Sarah's text, about the family gathering on Saturday. For the first time in 5 years, I consider not going. What would happen? Would anyone even notice? Or would they just be annoyed that I didn't bring the cranberry sauce, inconvenienced by my absence only because it affected their meal? The thought of not going makes me feel sick with anxiety. But it also makes me feel something else, something I barely recognize. It might be hope. Or maybe it's just the tiniest spark of self-respect, flickering to life after years of being smothered. My phone sits on the counter, full of unread messages. I pick it up and scroll through them. 3 from Michael about the insurance payment, 2 from Sarah asking if I got her text about Saturday. 1 from Tyler. Hey, Grandma, any chance you could help me out with my electric bill? It's overdue and they're going to shut it off. I can feel the familiar guilt rising, the trained response to drop everything and fix their problems. But this time, I set the phone down without responding. Instead, I take a shower, the hot water washing away the sleepless night. I put on clean clothes, not the worn cardigan, but a nicer sweater I rarely wear because I'm saving it for some special occasion that never comes. I brush my hair and even put on a little makeup. When I look in the mirror, I see someone who looks a little more like the person I used to be before I became invisible. I have 6 hours before my shift at the library. I decide to do something I haven't done in months. I leave my apartment without a specific destination in mind. I just walk, down my street and into the neighborhood, past the shops and cafes and other lives being lived. The cold air bites at my cheeks, but it feels good, invigorating. I feel present in my body in a way I haven't in a long time. I end up at a small coffee shop I've never been to before. It's warm inside, smelling of espresso and cinnamon. I order a cappuccino, something frivolous I'd normally deny myself, and sit by the window. I watch people pass by, living their lives, and I wonder what my life could look like if I made different choices. What if I stopped being available to solve everyone else's problems? What if I used my money on myself, on things that brought me joy? What if I demanded respect and walked away if I didn't get it? The barista, a young woman with purple hair and kind eyes, brings me my coffee with a smile. She notices the notebook I'm still carrying. "Are you a writer?" she asks. I start to say no automatically, then stop myself. "Maybe," I say. "I'm trying to be." She grins. "That's awesome. Keep at it." The world needs more stories from women who've actually lived. After she walks away, I sit with her words. Women who've actually lived. Have I lived? Or have I just existed in the margins of other people's lives? I open my notebook and start writing again, but this time it's different. This time I'm not just documenting the pain, I'm imagining alternatives. What would I say to Sarah if I was completely honest? What boundaries would I set if I wasn't afraid? What would my life look like if I chose myself, even just a little bit? The words come faster this time, filling pages with a future I'm not sure I have the courage to claim. But at least I can imagine it. At least I can see it clearly enough to write it down. That's a start. I write for almost an hour, barely noticing as the coffee shop fills with Sunday morning customers. Couples come in for brunch, friends meet for coffee, people sit alone with their laptops and books. Everyone seems comfortable in their own lives, secure in their place in the world. I want that. I want to feel like I belong somewhere, like I'm the main character in my own story instead of a supporting role in everyone else's. When I finally close my notebook, I notice a text from Deborah. "Just checking in. Haven't heard from you in a few days. Everything okay?" The simple kindness of it makes my throat tight. Someone noticed. Someone cared enough to reach out without wanting something from me. I type back, "I'm okay. Going through some family stuff. See you at my shift this afternoon?" Her response comes immediately. "Of course, we can talk if you want, or not. Just glad you're okay." This is what care looks like, I realize. Not the performative concern my children show right before asking for money, but genuine interest in my well-being. No strings attached, no ulterior motives. Just one human being caring about another. When did I forget that I deserved this kind of consideration from my own family? I leave the coffee shop and continue walking, my feet carrying me without conscious direction. I find myself in Grant Park, the lake stretching out gray and infinite beyond the shore. The wind coming off the water is brutal, but I stand there anyway, letting it whip my hair around my face, feeling the cold seep through my coat. I feel alive in a way I haven't in years. The pain is still there, raw and aching, but underneath it is something else. Determination, maybe, or just exhaustion with my own passivity. I pull out my phone and open the text thread with Sarah. My thumbs hover over the keyboard. I've drafted and deleted a dozen messages over the years, always chickening out at the last moment. But this time feels different. This time, the words that need to be said won't stay bottled up inside me. I type, "Sarah, I need to talk to you about something important. Can we meet for coffee this week? Just the two of us?" I hit send before I can second-guess myself. My heart is pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. The message shows as delivered, then read. 3 dots appear, indicating she's typing. Then they disappear, then appear again. Finally, a response comes through. "Is everything okay? Are you sick?" Of course that's her first thought, that I'm dying and need to tell her in person. Not that I might want to spend time with my daughter. Talk to her about our relationship, connect as human beings. I type back, I'm not sick. I just want to talk. Please. Another long pause. Then, I'm really swamped this week, Mom. Can it wait until the weekend? You'll see me on Saturday anyway. Something inside me breaks, but in a different way than before. Not the shattering of hope, but the breaking of chains. I've been so afraid of losing them that I've let them treat me however they want. But the truth is, I've already lost them. They've been gone for years, and I've just been too scared to admit it. I type, "I'm not coming on Saturday." And no, this can't wait. If you can't make time for me this week, that tells me everything I need to know. I send it and immediately turn off my phone, my hands shaking. I can't handle watching her response come through, can't bear to see her dismissiveness or anger or whatever emotion my boundary setting provokes. For the first time in 5 years, I've said no to my daughter. The sky hasn't fallen. The ground hasn't opened up beneath my feet. I'm still standing here, still breathing, still whole. I walk back toward my apartment, my mind strangely quiet after months of constant anxiety. I have my library shift in 3 hours, and I'm actually looking forward to it. To story time with the children, to shelving books in the quiet sections, to maybe having that coffee with Deborah and telling her what I've done. Maybe she'll be proud of me. Maybe I'll even be a little proud of myself. When I get home, I make myself lunch, not canned soup, but actual food. I scramble eggs with vegetables, make toast with real butter, pour myself orange juice in an actual glass instead of drinking it from the carton over the sink. I set a place at the table, use a napkin, treat myself with the same care I've always given to everyone else. It's such a small thing, but it feels revolutionary. After lunch, I turn my phone back on. There are 14 messages waiting. Most are from Sarah, starting with confusion, escalating to irritation, then something that might be concern. The last one says, "Mom, what's going on? You're scaring me. Please call me. I'm scaring her." The irony would be funny if it wasn't so sad. She's scared because for the first time in 5 years, I'm not behaving according to the pattern she expects. I'm not immediately available, not rushing to soothe her concerns, not putting her needs ahead of my own. One boundary, and suddenly I'm the problem. There are also messages from Michael, increasingly frantic about his insurance payment. He's gone from asking to demanding to guilt-tripping. The last one says, "Mom, I don't understand why you're ignoring me. I really need this. You know I'm going through a hard time right now. I thought I could count on you." And there it is, laid bare. The transactional nature of our relationship. He thought he could count on me. Not for love, not for support, not for a listening ear, but for money, for financial rescue from consequences of his own making. When did I become just a resource to be tapped rather than a person to be loved? Tyler's messages are similar, though less demanding, more manipulative, actually. "Grandma, I know you're busy, but I'm really in a bind here. I haven't eaten today because I had to choose between food and keeping the lights on. I don't know what to do." I stare at that message for a long time. The old me would have immediately sent money, guilt overwhelming any rational thought. But I'm starting to see the pattern more clearly now. Tyler is 21 years old. He has a part-time job and supposedly goes to community college, though I'm not sure how much he actually attends. He lives beyond his means, just like his father and aunt, and expects me to make up the difference. He's learned that if he makes the situation sound dire enough, I'll cave. But here's what I know. Michael told me just last month that he gave Tyler $200 to help with rent. Sarah mentioned that she bought him groceries. So where is all that money going? Why is he hungry if his mother just bought him food? The answer is that he's not actually hungry. He's learned that claiming to be hungry is the most effective way to make me feel guilty enough to send money. I don't respond to any of them. Instead, I get ready for my library shift, taking my time, choosing my clothes carefully, doing my hair nicely. When I look in the mirror, I almost don't recognize myself. Not because I look so different, but because there's something in my eyes that wasn't there yesterday. Something like resolve. The library is quiet when I arrive, just the way I like it. Deborah is at the front desk, and her face lights up when she sees me. "You look different," she says. "Good, different." "I feel different," I tell her. And then, before I can lose my nerve, I ask, "Can we have that coffee after my shift? I really need to talk to someone." She squeezes my hand. "Of course. I'm here whenever you need me. Story time is magical today. Maybe it's because I'm more present, more focused on these children who actually want to spend time with me. I read them The Giving Tree, a book I've read 100 times but never really understood until now. The tree gives and gives until there's nothing left, and the boy just takes and takes, never considering what he's demanding. At the end, the tree is just a stump, and the book presents this as a beautiful story of unconditional love. But watching the children's faces, I suddenly see it differently. What kind of love leaves one party completely depleted? What kind of relationship is healthy when it's entirely one-sided? The tree has nothing left to give, no leaves to provide shade, no apples to feed the hungry, no branches for children to play on. It has martyred itself for someone who never appreciated the sacrifice. I don't want to be the giving tree anymore. I don't want to be a stump, used up and empty, good for nothing except sitting. I want to keep my branches, my leaves, my shade. I want to grow and flourish instead of being chopped down bit by bit. After story time, little Maya runs up to me and hugs my legs. "Will you read to us again next week?" she asks, her face tilted up toward mine, full of hope and trust. "Yes," I tell her. "I'll be here." Her mother approaches and thanks me again. She mentions that they're new to the neighborhood, that they moved here from Arizona 3 months ago and are still finding their way. Maya doesn't have many friends yet, and these story times have become the highlight of her week. "Would you like to get coffee sometime?" the mother asks. "I'm Emily, by the way. I feel like I should know the name of the woman my daughter talks about constantly. I'm so startled by the invitation that I almost say no automatically. But then I catch myself. Why would I say no? Why do I deprive myself of potential friendships, potential connections, potential joy? I'd love that," I say, and I give her my number. Emily's face breaks into a warm smile, and I realize that making friends at 68 is still possible. Building a life that doesn't revolve entirely around my ungrateful children is still possible. After my shift, Deborah and I sit in the small break room with terrible coffee from the ancient machine. She doesn't push, just waits patiently for me to find the words. So I tell her everything, the whole story, from the first missed Christmas to this morning's texts. The money I've given, the boundaries I've never set, the slow erosion of my self-worth until I became nothing more than a convenient ATM. When I finish, Deborah is quiet for a long moment. Then she says, "I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. What they're doing to you is financial abuse, it's elder abuse, and the emotional manipulation, the way they exclude you from their lives, except when they need something, that's abuse too." The word abuse hits me like a physical blow. I've never thought of it that way. They're my children. Children can't abuse their parents, can they? But as soon as the thought forms, I know it's ridiculous. Of course they can. Abuse is about power dynamics, about one person exploiting another's vulnerability. And I've been vulnerable to my children's manipulation for years, letting them exploit my love, my guilt, my fear of losing them completely. Deborah continues, her voice gentle but firm. "You need to set clear boundaries and stick to them. Stop giving them money. Full stop. If they have financial emergencies, they can figure it out the way everyone else does. They're adults, and you need to tell them how their behavior makes you feel. Have a real conversation, even if it's uncomfortable." "But what if they cut me off completely?" I ask, voicing my deepest fear. "What if I set boundaries and they decide I'm not worth the effort?" Deborah looks at me with such compassion. Honey, they've already cut you off. They've already decided you're only worth their time when you're giving them something. The question isn't what you'll lose by setting boundaries. The question is what you'll gain. Self-respect. Peace. Maybe, if they're capable of it, a real relationship based on mutual love and respect instead of transactions. She's right. I know she's right. But knowing it and doing something about it are two very different things. That evening, I sit down at my desk with my notebook and I write letters. Not to send, just to organize my thoughts, to figure out exactly what I need to say. I write to Sarah, to Michael, to Tyler. I write about how their behavior has hurt me, about the pattern I've finally recognized, about the boundaries I'm setting going forward. The words pour out of me, raw and honest and a little bit angry. I've spent so many years swallowing my anger, trying to be the perfect mother who never complains, never demands, never expects. But I'm angry. I have a right to be angry. By the time I finish, it's after midnight and I've filled 20 pages. My hand aches, but my heart feels lighter. Tomorrow I decide I'll call Sarah. I'll have that conversation whether she wants to or not. And I'll tell Michael and Tyler that the Bank of Mom is permanently closed. They'll be angry. They'll try to guilt me. They might even stop speaking to me for a while. But at least I'll know I stood up for myself. At least I'll know I didn't spend the last years of my life being used by the people I loved most. I go to bed that night and sleep better than I have in months. No middle-of-the-night anxiety, no dreams of being invisible or forgotten. Just deep, dreamless sleep. The kind that comes when you finally stop fighting yourself. Monday morning dawns clear and cold. I make myself coffee and a real breakfast, pancakes from scratch, something I haven't made in years. I eat slowly, savoring each bite, watching the morning light paint my kitchen golden. Then I pick up my phone and call Sarah before I can lose my nerve. She answers on the third ring, her voice wary. Mom? What's going on? I take a deep breath. Sarah, I need you to listen to me. Really listen, without interrupting. Can you do that? There's a pause. Then, quietly, okay. And so I begin. I tell her everything I've been holding back for 5 years, about the loneliness of missed Christmases, about the pain of being excluded from family gatherings, about feeling like I only matter when I'm solving problems or giving money. I tell her about driving past her house on Christmas Eve, sitting in my car crying while she laughed inside with everyone else. I tell her about postponing my medication because I gave Michael rent money. I tell her about Tyler's birthday party where I stood invisible in her kitchen for 2 hours. My voice shakes, but I keep going. I tell her that I love her, that I love all of them, but that I can't continue being treated this way. I tell her that starting today, I won't be giving money anymore. That I need to be included in their lives as a person, not just as a resource. That I deserve respect and consideration and love that's given freely, not transactionally. When I finally finish, there's a long silence on the other end. Then Sarah says, her voice small and uncertain, I didn't know you felt this way. I told you, I remind her gently. 2 years ago, you said you were too busy to talk about it. Another silence. Then, I don't know what to say, Mom. I mean, we do love you. We're just busy. You know how life is. I do know how life is, I say. But Sarah, you make time for the things you value. You make time for the people who matter to you, and I need to matter to you for more than just my bank account. That's not fair, she says, and I can hear the defensiveness creeping into her voice. We don't just see you as a bank account. When was the last time you called me just to talk? I ask. Not to ask for something, not because you needed help, just to see how I was doing? She can't answer. We both know the answer is never, or so long ago that neither of us can remember. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty, I say. though part of me very much wants her to feel guilty. I'm trying to explain why things need to change. I love you. I love Michael and Tyler. But I need to love myself too. I need to take care of myself. And I can't keep draining my savings and postponing my own needs to enable your irresponsibility. Irresponsibility? Her voice rises. Mom, we're not irresponsible. Things just happen. Life is expensive. We thought you wanted to help us. I do want to help you, I say, but help doesn't mean enabling you to avoid the consequences of your choices. You're 45 years old, Sarah. Michael is 42. You're both adults with jobs and families. If you're having trouble making ends meet, then you need to adjust your spending, not call me for a bailout. The conversation goes on for another 30 minutes. She cycles through denial, anger, deflection, and finally something that might be understanding. She doesn't apologize, not really, but she does agree to try harder, to call more often, to include me more. Whether she'll actually follow through remains to be seen. But at least I've said my piece. At least she can't claim she didn't know how I felt. After we hang up, I feel simultaneously exhausted and energized. The hard part is done, or at least begun. I text Michael and Tyler similar messages, explaining the new boundaries, making it clear that I won't be providing financial support anymore. Michael's response is immediate and angry. Tyler doesn't respond at all. That afternoon, I do something I haven't done in years. I look into activities I might enjoy. There's a watercolor class at the community center on Tuesday nights, a book club at the library that Deborah has been inviting me to for months, a walking group that meets in the park on Saturday mornings. I sign up for all of them. I use money from my savings account, money I would have given to Michael for his insurance, and I spend it on myself without guilt. Well, with some guilt, but I'm working on it. The days that follow are a strange mix of relief and anxiety. My phone is quieter without the constant demands, but the silence feels ominous. Part of me expects them to come around, to realize what they've lost and fight to restore our relationship. Another part expects them to simply move on, to find other people to use the way they used me. I don't know which outcome would hurt more. But here's what I do know. I'm starting to build a life that doesn't revolve around their needs. I'm making friends, pursuing interests, treating myself with kindness. I'm learning to sit with uncomfortable feelings instead of immediately trying to fix everyone else's problems so I don't have to face my own. It's hard, maybe the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's also necessary. I'm 68 years old, and I'm finally learning to put myself first. Not in a selfish way, but in a self-preserving way. I'm learning that love doesn't require martyrdom, that being a good mother doesn't mean sacrificing every part of myself on the altar of my children's comfort. I'm learning that I deserve better, and that demanding better doesn't make me a bad person. The story isn't over. I don't know yet if my children will change, if they'll realize what they've lost and work to rebuild our relationship on healthier terms. I don't know if I'll spend my remaining Christmases alone or surrounded by people who genuinely want me there. But for the first time in years, I'm choosing hope over habit. I'm choosing myself. And that, I'm learning, is enough.